Hello, everyone. Welcome to a mock interview session. We have Alex with us. He's a senior PM at Google. And thank you for joining us.
It is
He,
entirely my pleasure, Sakshi.
yeah, he actually has a lot of helpful videos on his channel and resources that he's compiled for all of us. Of course, we're going to mail it out to all of you, but it's also in the comments. So make sure while you're on YouTube, you subscribe to it.
Sweet. Yeah, I think it's good. I got a lot of stuff about product management, specifically business, finance, startups, but for product management, how to get into product management, interview stuff, resume stuff, all this stuff. So happy to be here. Happy to answer any questions. And of course, make sure to subscribe and keep in touch.
Sure. Thank you. So let's start with the mock. And this is the prompt that everyone got today. Design a touchscreen table for a restaurant.
Yeah.
So if you were interviewing for the PM role, how would you approach this problem?
Yeah, great question. So I tried not to think about it beforehand so that you get authentic response. And it's very easy for me to just put things out of my mind, so that's not a problem. So here's how I would approach it. In general, you probably all heard this: ask clarifying questions at the beginning. I think that that's an awesome step zero for our engineering focused friends. Step zero is yes, definitely ask clarifying questions. So what I would do first is write down the question. So design a touchscreen table for a restaurant. Make sure that I understand every concept, every theme in that question. So touchscreen table for restaurants. So that's my prompt. So we know that the question is dealing with restaurants, but we don't know whether we are the restaurant. We are thinking of what does actually need to be done in this situation. So first thing I'd ask, okay, so that sounds good. I'll be happy to design it. But first, let me ask you some questions. The questions are we designing from the perspective of a restaurant or a chain of restaurants? Are we designing from the perspective of the table manufacturer? Are we just putting all this out of our mind and just trying to design the best touchscreen table that we can? That's possible too. But if that's the case, let's think who we're designing it for. So even before thinking about how to approach this question, I would think about, is this a table that we want to for the patrons, where the people that actually visit restaurants and eat there and use this table for some purposes, or is it used by the people that work in the restaurants? So, and usually the way I approach questions in an interview setting, what I recommend to approach it is that the candidate should pick the direction. So rather than saying, is it this or is it that, you might say, if you don't have a preference, I think it would be interesting to pursue down this path. And in this situation, I think it would be interesting to actually design a touchscreen table for patrons. It would be interesting to see what it would be like to visit a restaurant and, as someone who's actually wants to eat or dine in, utilize this touchscreen table. That would be just an interesting design challenge. So I would ask the interviewer, okay, if you don't have a preference, that's where I would like to take it, and then we could think about how to actually approach the problem. Presumably here, the interviewer will say, yeah, that's fine. You decide. Most of the time, a lot of these questions, they don't have like actual answers. It's more just to watch how the candidate approaches problem solving and thinks about actually solving these problems as opposed to the answer itself. So usually most interviews will say, yep, that sounds good. You pick a direction. I'm okay with that. The next step is to, now that you've picked a direction, think about creating a rough structure, just an idea of how you're actually going to be answering this question. Think about how much time you have left. How much time do you think is reasonable to answer such a question? Think about what are the likely signals that an interviewer wants to determine from this question. Is this a purely design question? Are there other concerns? Do they want to think about how a development of such a project might work? So just think of what else may be in stake here. A lot of the times, if you're interviewing for like top tech companies, they'll say this is purely design interview, and they'll say like this will be the meat of the interview. It'll be like a 30-minute discussion, and so okay, this is my time bank. I've got 30 minutes, but it might be that this might be a warm-up question just to get started, so you don't need to go too in depth. There might be different situations. Make sure you understand and you're tailoring your response and your structure that you're thinking of with that in mind. So if you've thought about all that, you can just say, I'll just take a minute here and come up with a structure. And your structure should just be something like, think about what's going on, make sure you comprehend what's happening, think about what problem is being solved. And in order to think about what problem is being solved, of course, you have to think about who the potential users of this product might be. So in this situation, we're thinking about, of course, the people that visit restaurants, the patrons, the people that eat at restaurants, and potentially the people that work at restaurants as well. We're focusing on the patrons here. So your structure would include making sure that you clarify exactly what you're building, talking about who this product might be for, talking about the way, if there's any specific user segments that you want to focus on, and then the way that these user segments or users interact with the product, so the use cases. And then think about deficiencies in these use cases, what doesn't feel good, any gaps, and think about potential vectors for improvement. And then actually talk about them, design these features, talk about the pros and cons when you prioritize between them, and talk about which ones you may choose. And so that's what your structure looks like. And you want to kind of give that, obviously take a few moments to actually write it down. If I were answering it, I would take a moment, I would write it down, then I'd walk the interviewer through. And then you start from each stage. So you want to think about obviously who this is for. So a touchscreen table, okay, it's obviously for people that are eating in the restaurant, but who are the types of people that eat at restaurants? Okay, it could be individuals, it could be families, it could be people on dates, it could be also different times of day. It could be different types of restaurants. So it could be, fast food restaurant. It could be it could be restaurants that have, live entertainment or some other aspects to the experience besides eating. And the reason you want to be thinking about all that is because later on, that's going to inform your feature design. It's going to inform how you think about designing features. Because I'm jumping ahead here, but when you're designing features, you want to leave yourself room to talk about some exciting stuff, not just run-of-the-mill improvements, but some 10x thinking, because you do want to demonstrate creativity as well. I hope we'll be able to come up with something creative. I'm not sure if we will, but you generally want to sort of give your quick wins, your conservative improvements in your feature set, but also your big ticket items, like your big wins or your moonshots. And in order to give yourself the proper space to be able to think of these features, you've got to define these users and these user segments in a way where you give yourself something to think about. So I would write down these users. Then if it's too vast in scope, like there's too many, you might want to focus on just a few users. You might even focus on one user group. For instance, we might say families, parents or some set of adults, a couple of adults, and 2 children or multiple children. And then you start thinking, why did I choose that? Well, because there's different demographics, different situations. And so the table, initially, what's the first thing that you think of when you think of a touchscreen table, patrons in a restaurant? You think of ordering the food, right? That's the first thing. And that's great. And we definitely want to put it in there, ordering food, finding out stuff about the food. But then you start to actually go for a little bit further and like, there's entertainment options. What kind of entertainment? Now you come into the fact that, yes, we had kids, we had adults, there might be some games, there might be some interactivity between patrons. A lot of different avenues open up, just depending on the type of user group that we chose. So that's why that stuff is important. So as we're talking about user groups, I might say, yep, let's focus on the families because it gives us enough freedom, but also it's a big enough group, but there's enough there to talk about. And you say, okay, let's focus today for the parents. What I usually like to do is just say, let's focus on this group for now, and we can always come back later if we have time and interest. You want to engage the interviewer as much as possible, but at the same time, you want to lead the conversation. And this stuff basically comes with experience. So I've done just many hundreds of these interviews, and so it's just a little bit easier for me to do it. But in reality, of course, it comes from experience, from actually working in product and working in different types of products. But you really, this is awesome that you're doing this and you're kind of trying to go through this yourself and practicing, because that's exactly how you're going to actually essentially learn those skills. You're just going to get more comfortable with different types of situations. So back to the user group. So we chose this group. Then we're going to think about what are the possible use cases? What are they doing? And the way I like to do these is think about the user journey. From the moment that someone in the family thought about getting some food, whether pick up or dine in, let's call it dine in. Again, we zoom in a little bit on that area. We think about, what do they have to do? Well, they had to decide where to go. Okay, that doesn't really concern the table. Then they had to, pack up, get this stuff that they need. Then they had to choose the restaurant. Obviously, go to the restaurant. Maybe they call in advance to make a reservation, and that's where you're starting to interact with this table potentially. So there is the very first touch point could be, okay, when you're making a reservation, something could go in the system that could then later be used by this touchscreen table. Then the next step is arrival. So you arrive at the restaurant. Someone has to let you know. Maybe someone can just show you to your seat. So the next step is arriving at the restaurant, going to your seat, browsing the menu, choosing items, placing an order, or getting more information about the items or some other supplementary information, placing the order, receiving the food, whatever happens in the middle of the actual experience with the kids, like entertaining the kids, keeping the kids calm, entertaining the kids, and keeping the kids calm. Yeah, I said that twice. That's what it's like to go with kids to a restaurant. And then, of course, eating the food, cleaning up after the kids, entertaining the kids, cleaning. You get the picture. So there's all these use cases. And I would write down all of them. I would identify a few interesting ones that might have an overlap with, okay, anything, for example, where you're literally in proximity to the table could have something to do with the table. And then once we've identified these use cases, for instance, I want to say like ordering food, maybe we want to focus on entertainment, we want to focus on, and maybe some sort of communication or information. And then you'd go down each one of those and walk through how the experience is right now in a typical restaurant and what you could do in order to solve the actual problem that the users are having at this particular step. So when they're ordering, what's the problem that the users have when they're sitting at a table and ordering food, picking a food, keeping the kids quiet while they're ordering, trying to figure out what the kids are actually going to eat and what they're going to say they're going to eat, but then they're not actually going to eat. So all of these things I would actually itemize out, and I'd identify a few interesting ones and talk about those at more length. So it may turn out that the features that we may want to think about as we analyze these use cases are large group, entertainment, or ordering. So in order to order, we would need to obviously demonstrate what is available, demonstrate maybe a recommendation engine. So we may want to recommend some items based on the composition of the group information that we would have already had by having the servers actually put the information in. And then we would have entertainment options, so multiple options, maybe coloring for the kids, maybe some sort of actual entertainment, like you watch something. Maybe it could be a simple game, depending on the size of this touchscreen table, because you want to keep in mind that when you're thinking about your 10x ideas, also it could be the entire table, like Microsoft's big touchscreen table of some years back. It could be the whole table as a touchscreen table. So that means that you could actually add in another, when you go down the use cases of actually enjoying the meal, you could add an additional element of setting the mood, scenery, and all other aspects. So as you're going through these use cases specifically, you're coming up with these list of features. You're thinking of, okay, so it could be, obviously you could literally browse items and press an item in order to learn more about it and press another button to actually place an order. And then as you're thinking about these features, you're writing down for yourself some edge cases and things to think about for your later analysis. So for instance, as you're designing, a feature of placing an order and you're thinking of the feature involves kids. So now you might say, yep, to order, you just press one button, you scroll, you press one more button to buy. But then you get into the situation where, okay, well, kids could actually accidentally press all those buttons and make those purchases. So you've got to think about, you don't have to necessarily design this, again, depending on the time that you have available, but you can just identify. A lot of times just identifying the way that you're thinking about these problems systematically and noting down all of the aspects as you go will allow you to actually show in an interview setting that this is kind of similar to the process that you would follow if you were designing a product, on the actual job. It's difficult to do this in a fixed time settings. So what you need to do in the fixed time settings is understand your limits. And by the way, actually, I should have asked, like, how much time should we dedicate to this? I gotta kind of practice what I preach. We're already 15 minutes in. How much time do you want me to take on the rest of this?
Um, I would say 15 minutes if you're doing straight the solution, but if you're explaining your,
You give
um,
me a few bonus minutes. Okay, that's
yeah,
fair.
if you're giving us
We
tips,
should have, yeah, I should have asked right up front, right? So I'll take a few extra minutes. So,
thank you.
uh, uh, but exactly. So once if you know the time that you're working with, you can decide whether to go into detail at any given point or just identifying it out loud and for yourself in your notes will send very important signals to the interviewer that you're thinking. You're not just going through the steps, because those steps, obviously, they're in the books and they're in all the guides and they're awesome steps, but you also want to show that you're thinking, you're using the steps rather than just try to follow the structure. You're actually thinking through everything. So then you're going to have a few features, and just like with everything else, you're probably going to have a bunch of features. You don't want to go too deep into this, again, time permitting. So you probably want to go 3, 4, 5 features in, and within those features, you want to make sure that you've got some really big, exciting features. So, for instance, your basic default features are learning literally what it might look like to browse through the menu. And here I actually would talk about all the finer details of at least one feature, so that the interviewer understands that I can go all the way up to the question of, like, why are we doing any of this, to who the users are, what the possible segments are, who it might make sense to go after first, and then which features I would design. But also I would design the interface and the flow of how that works, and try to do it all in the span of 15 minutes plus 3, 4 minutes for additional explanation. So, for instance, when we're talking about that feature of placing an order, I might say, okay, initially there's going to be a space on off to the side of the table, and we have our matrix of options. This could be either a big touch screen for entertainment. It could be a smaller touch screen. There's a certain piece of the table which is reserved for the touch screen part, but there's an element there where you are browsing through the types of items. Then you can tap in order to proceed further and see additional list with beautiful pictures, maybe videos of what you're actually about to looking into. And then at a tap, you can order it to your table, and it gives you information such as allergies. This is that might be pertinent to you, like allergy information, and of course, how long it's going to come to arrive to your table, and obviously the cost. But this is where, as you're talking through stuff, now you could sow the seeds for potential future gamification and additional stronger features. Is maybe there's either a touch screen where you can, with your fingerprint, sort of log into your profile. Now, obviously, it's a security and privacy issue, but there's ways you can use maybe third-party authentication, whatever it is. But then actually the table in the restaurant automatically would already know what you like, what you've ordered in the past, your allergies, and all of this stuff. So if we can have that feature on our list of features, again, maybe that's too lengthy to go into right now, but it's essentially customization and profile saving. So this feature set, you go through those features, and then you will prioritize the features. So we'll have in our feature list, we might have, those basic ones like ordering information, and then we might have entertainment options, and we might have, like we said, collaboration. And from the entertainment, we'd build out also, we talk about the feature, like what would it be? It would be entertainment within your table, or entertainment with other patrons, or even beyond that. It could be, some sort of high score that you had previously, again, with your personalization options. So there's options for what we could do with these features. Now, when we're talking about actually prioritizing these features, now we come back into, okay, well, what are we actually designing? We said we wanted to choose to design a table for patrons. That would be an interesting challenge, but ultimately, we need to understand, what are we trying to encourage here? Are we trying to actually make it simpler for the users, for this user group that we chose to have essentially a more enjoyable experience? to have a more calm experience, right? We chose for this group with parents with kids. So what would it take? We prioritizing features of what would be the biggest impact for the kind of least effort of actually solving the problem that family has. And so it might be the features of kids entertainment might actually be ranked higher. But we also want to provide such entertainment that it's not there may be options of different types of entertainment. So maybe there's audio entertainment, maybe there's video entertainment. There might be, like I said, the gamification aspects of it. The kids might play together depending on the age ranges, which again can be personalized and can be saved. So I would probably start from the entertainment features, and of course then ensure that the basics are set up, and that we've got our ordering and selection and allergies and all that kind of the default stuff actually working. And so then we would, after we rank these features, we talk about which features would do more to actually accomplish our goal of solving for the family use case. And we prioritize it like that. But because like this whole journey, I've been making little side steps into all these other possible areas, I've gotten them written down. So when I do my recap, I can actually just say, well, look, we started out, we talked about designing a touchscreen table for a restaurant, but in actuality, it's a more complicated issue. We need to think about who we actually want to design for. We've thought about some options. We decided to focus on this group. We decided to focus on their utility and ultimate enjoyment of the experience. We focused on some pain points that they had. We designed some features that would actually address those pain points, and we prioritized them. And we focused on the ones that might give us more impact on the aspects that we decided to focus on. And if we had more time, we would design a lot more fun things, but I think I already went way over time. So that's kind of the structure that I would follow for the whole question and answer.
Thank you for answering that. I don't know if you're up to answering some questions.
Yeah, of course. Well, I already, my head hurts from talking for 20 minutes. So yes,
Okay.
questions would be great.
So we have a question over here.
Shwangi says, can we have a template for personal PM projects? I don't actually know exactly what that means. What that means. Do you mean like for your resumes, or what do you mean, Shwangi?
I think she means for resume.
For resume. Yeah, I don't know that you need a template. I would say that. Well, I have a bunch of videos on how to make your resumes. I just did a 3-hour live stream session on resume review this morning, and I actually do these on Saturday mornings, 8 o'clock Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on Saturdays, and I'll be doing them for the next few Saturdays or until I run out of energy, which is possibly very soon. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there's that question. It's a good question. It's a great question, but to actually answer it. Actually requires to go into the theory of it. And I have like a whole bunch of videos. I would say that like I have some links that I could probably give you, but basically you want to, when you're designing your resume, you want to understand what are the qualities and skills you're actually trying to demonstrate. And so rather than thinking, okay, how do I put my personal projects in here? Think about what is it that I'm trying to actually say? What are the skills that I'm trying to demonstrate for this hiring manager or recruiter that's reading the resume? And then how do I best demonstrate that? And then think about, out of these 5-10 things that I want to demonstrate, are my personal projects demonstrating any of them? Hopefully they are, because you've chosen them according to some criteria that has to do with product management. And if they are, then think about, okay, so what do I want to say that's going to support the fact that I'm a great collaborator? I work with cross-functional teams. I can do end-to-end design development. I'm a great prioritizer. I understand certain technical aspects, or I can do roadmaps or strategic or vision or what have you. And then you use that personal project to demonstrate that point. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Anytime I'm asked questions, I tend to get into the philosophical aspects of it, and I definitely go a little bit longer, but hopefully, again, if you're thinking of getting into product management, I think a few discussions like this I found very helpful, multiple years ago, You usually got them from kind of books and practice with friends, really. But it's great that there's places like this now that you can get this information and work together. This is awesome. Let's go to the next question. Shruti asks, how are product design and product management roles similar and different to each other? How do their interviews vary? So that depends about what you mean by product design. A lot of times product managers could be product designers. If you're thinking of a product like UX designer, like an actual designer that is essentially drawing things and designing the user experience, of course, there's a lot of overlap, but that's very different. But if you're thinking about product design, like something like we just did right now, we're attempted to do with the touchscreen, that was product design. But of course, that's very much a product management question. So I don't know that if you're seeing opportunities out there that are calling for product design, or for instance, in the game, I spent a lot of years making games for mobile and PC, and those are game designers, right? But product designers are doing the same thing. They're designing these products. So if you're talking about graphics, then that's going to be UXD, user experience designer. That's usually there's a visual, obviously a strong visual component. And product manager is essentially the owner and leader without any direct authority, usually, of the cross-functional group in order to build a particular product or suite of products.
What I think is product design is a part or a segment of the product management interview.
Oh, yes.
One of
Yeah,
the
of course.
questions.
Yeah, definitely. So that was it, right? Like what we just did. Or it might be like, what's your favorite app? Design a feature for it or whatever. Yeah.
Is the next question?
Bia asks, any advice for a beginner with a CS background? Success already, Bia. That's great. Who wants to get more into product management? What's the best way to get started? Craft a PM-focused resume and practice for interviews. Okay, so first of all, I gotta start dropping these links here, because step one, and I'm sorry, this shameless plug, but like, can I actually drop comments in here? I don't know. Do I have?
You can send it to me on the private chat, and I'll.
Okay, all right. So I'll send it. Well, you have it. So I sent you this one, but it's like my newsletter. Or if you just go to www.alexrychevsky.com, the reason is because I send out invites to join me on the live stream. So that's been cool. We did this 2 or 3 times. You can actually see it on the channel. There are past recordings of some stuff where people just come on and we talk about their resumes. So obviously, before you join me on the show there, I want to make sure you've watched the other videos, you know how to make the basic product management resumes, you do the basic stuff, so I don't have to repeat all the stuff, because I have like 5 or 6 videos that is going to take you like 30 minutes to watch through, and it's going to take you up from 0 to 4 out of 10 on the product management resume ladder. And then after that, we can definitely chat at length, in person when we do these live streams. But first of all, CS background is awesome. So I think that's a great start. Also, if you don't have a CS background, don't worry about it. It's great to have it, because it's kind of tech. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that's the link right there. So just add yourself, and I'll keep you updated. I don't send any spam or anything like that. It's all product management business all the time, not too often, while I still have the bandwidth and the volume to actually handle these one-on-one discussions. I think we should definitely do it. I definitely recommend that you leverage your CS background, as opposed to think of it as any kind of like, this is more engineering. No, this is great for product management, because a lot of times you're going to be doing most of the work as product management and tech. You can leverage that in a strong way. And I would just, again, approach the same way. Think about what are the aspects of product managers that you want to demonstrate, and then think about which ones you can already leverage from your computer science experience or educational background or projects. So I think it's awesome that you're going there. Start from scratch, just add the pieces of computer science that are helping. In terms of practicing for interviews, the same exact way. Like I said, now it's awesome that there are groups like this. You can find colleagues and like-minded individuals that are interested in product management, chat with them, set up just practice ones. You do a question, they do a question. You know the basic framework. That's why I said, like, you can Google how to design and they'll give you Circles framework, or you can check out, how cracking the PM interview, and there's a bunch of other stuff. And the theory is what I just gave you, but practice, literally you need to practice it. It's nothing mysterious. So to give you a sense, it takes a lot of sessions. Like if you want to come in and just do exceptionally well in the interview without having a lot of actual product management experience, you're going to have to practice those interviews a lot. But I think the reward is that you can go to the companies of your choosing, because a lot of the times it's, yes, it's educational acumen, it's your resume to actually get the interview. But once you're in the interview, and the bigger the company, the more you have to basically check off all of these boxes. You got to know how to design. You got to know, you got to be analytical mindset. You got to obviously have excellent behavioral questions and answer. You got to be an upstanding, moral citizen, like these type of things. But just practice, I would say.
Also, in case you didn't know, we also have mock technical interviews every weekend, just like this PM one. In
Nice.
case you want to join one of those, just ping me or someone else.
That's awesome. Okay. I should warn you, when you ask me a question, you're going to get a long answer. So if you want a short answer, just say, short answer, please. Okay, Joyce, as someone with a non-CS background, what specific technical skills or knowledge should I learn? I have a video called Tech Topics You Should Know as a Product Manager. I should link it, but maybe I'll find it and I'll link it a little bit later. But again, you can find it in the channel. There are some things that you want to be, you want to be good with numbers and math and statistics and understand how statistics work, data analysis, try to experiment a little bit with SQL. From a tech, you want to be able to understand how computers work, how the internet works, client server technologies, how product is designed and developed. Like, what are the common issues? What's the typical product development life cycle? What's agile methodology? But also, when you're thinking about, let's say, a lot of these technical questions will be like design a system or improve the design or the architecture of a system. So you need to kind of get comfortable thinking about technical processes, data storage, data transfer, some aspects like that. It's actually not rocket science. It's not as complicated as it sounds, and you don't need to go in depth for a lot of general product management. If you want to go to specifically tech-focused product management, there are technical product manager roles which require coding experience and a lot deeper architectural understanding. You can certainly go down that route, but I would start from a generalist approach and just focus on understanding how to set up experiments, how statistics, actual like a foundation of statistics, data analysis, SQL, so manipulation of data, and how to design systems. Alexander, hi, thanks so much for being here. Super helpful. All right, that's great to hear. Wondering what the interview flow is like. There's so much to talk about. Is the interview talking the whole time? Will the interview prompt? Yeah, so that's different for every interviewer. That's a great question. Thanks, Alex. Obviously, it depends on the experience of the interviewer, the type of company you're at, the process that they follow for interviews. Generally, you want to try to make it a conversation. Like, if you've managed to finish an interview and you've just had an interesting intellectual discussion with someone and you had a great time and it felt like they had a great time, then you're that much closer to success. Like, that's an important piece of it, because ultimately that is what it is, because you only have usually 40 minutes, in our situations, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is, to answer an extremely detailed question. Like, for instance, I might ask a question like, what should be the strategy for Disney Plus in the next 5 years? So I'll ask you that question. Now, when you think about answering that question, I'm sure you'll do a great job. But what are you going to tell me in 15, 20 minutes when the presidents and VPs of Disney are spending months thinking about this? So realistically, think about that, right? So you want to just have an intellectually interesting discussion and aim for that. You should probably, the interviewer is going to be talking the majority of the time, but you do want to bring the interviewer in as much as possible along for the ride. Like, hey, I'm going down this direction. How does that sound? Or if you have a preference here, which one of these two would you like to focus on? But usually you want to show leadership, and you could ask, for instance, if you've identified like 2 out of multiple paths, you could say, okay, out of these 2, which ones do you think we should focus on? Or you could also ask, how is this going so far? Anything else that you'd like to talk about out of the stuff that we mentioned? Because remember, as I'm talking about it, usually I'm going to be coming up with like side things and edge cases and those other considerations. You might say at a certain point in discussion, you might say, okay, do you want to touch upon any other of these issues that we just brought up, or should we continue down kind of completing the rest of the question? And I think sometimes those check-ins will lead to interesting conversation. The best interviews that I've had as an interviewer are ones like that, where I didn't talk a lot as the interviewer, but I was engaged in what was happening, and I felt like we were having a dialogue. Janani asks, does program management have a similar structure in terms of preparation? So first of all, I think Microsoft call product managers program managers. So there's a lot of ambiguity even in the name product and program managers. So definitely check that out. But today we've been talking about product management in general. Program management, the way I think about it, is between a project manager and a product manager. So it's someone who is much more organization focused. I have a video called Difference Between Product, Project, and Program Managers. This is like the perfect audience. I'm sorry to keep pitching my videos, but this is like, if you folks have not seen my videos, I think it's going to be very helpful. And I'm happy to collaborate again, because I feel like I'm just constantly pitching my videos here. So, anytime you need me in the future, just let me know. But program managers is more focused on organizational aspects and maybe getting buy-ins from stakeholders and keeping people kind of on point. I've met in my career some fantastic program managers, few of them, and some not so great ones. If you think about it from, again, moving us forward from an organizational perspective. But product management is more like end to end. What should we do and why should we do it? And program managers a lot of the time is, okay, now that we're doing it, how do we keep everybody moving forward toward that direction? How do we make sure that stakeholders are aligned, and how do we make sure we hit all our deadlines? Kind of like that. Favor, I might have mispronounced that, asks, what technical skills are required for PM? Can you get into product management without having any technical skills, but you have strong knowledge in design thinking experience? Yeah, I think so. I think that one's a short answer. Yes. The answer is yes. I would not be discouraged if you don't have strong technical skills. Now, do an analysis, like an honest, objective analysis, and think, okay, do I not understand some of these technical concepts that Alex just talked about, 10 minutes ago? If you don't understand them, invest some time into making sure that you do get a little bit up to speed. But you should definitely not feel discouraged, because soft skills are a huge part of product management, and certainly design thinking, experience, thinking about the user experience and thinking about how to lead a team together and being able to communicate is a huge, huge part of the work.
I think that's the end of the questions here. If anyone wants to add in, you can do so in the next 1 minute before I assume there's no more questions.
Cool. Yeah, those are good questions. Thanks very much.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Definitely my pleasure. Yeah, good to be here. Hope to see you guys again. Again, don't forget, subscribe to newsletter, and let's keep in touch. And best of luck to all of you.
Yes, and what you all can also do is send in some questions via email to me or him, so we can organize another session where these can be answered. All right.
Awesome.
Bye.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.